Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. We kind of ventured into culture a little bit. It is a buzzword that gets thrown a lot around, but it's still really important, and everybody has one in their program. Whether they're conscious of it or they're fighting for it or not, it's there. In your opinion, how does culture drive performance?
Well, so as I admitted to you, I'm a JAMODI podcast junkie, and so I knew this question was coming, and I've seen a lot of takes on this.
You're the first.
Yeah. So no, I know there's a lot of us out there. There's a club, but I think there's separate cultures. Okay, I really tried to think about this. I think there's a basketball culture, right? And you talked about like how you guys want to play, what you guys value as a team, what you guys do. I think the best definition of culture I've heard is, the collection of behaviors and attitudes carried by a group, right? So your team, after the years that you guys have a certain number of beliefs and behaviors and attitudes about the way basketball should be played and what's good and what's valuable. And some of that's been dictated by you, and some of that's been dictated by what the players, the interaction they have to themselves. So I think your job as a coach is to try to create a unified belief system and set of actions on the basketball court. That's one part of it. We've got the other part, which we can address in a minute. But like for us, like everybody now, right? We're really wanting to look at the analytics of the game. We want to take the most valuable shots.
Yeah.
We want to take shots at the rim. We want to get rim assisted shots. We want to get rim assisted hockey assists. We want to take catch and shoot threes. We want to minimize our long twos or floaters. I've beat that into their head so much now, right? That we know that when we take those shots, right, we're not worried about the outcome, right? He took the right shot. The kid took the right shot. We're all excited about it. On the opposite side, right, defensively, particularly a couple of years ago, we were playing a little bit more zone. And we really understood the goal of that was to limit catch and shoot threes, was to limit shots at the rim. Obviously, the zone's really good at that. And so every time the other team took one of those contested mid-range shots, we didn't care about the outcome.
Victory.
Right? We're all cheering.
Yeah.
We're all cheering, right? So that's culture, right? To me, that's your basketball culture. And then you've got your other side of it, like, okay, what do we do when there's adversity? How do we handle success? These are all other elements of your culture, and you've got to again set the tone for that, right? What do you reward? What do you acknowledge? And so again, from our perspective, I think act like you've been there, celebrate in the locker room. Coach Kirkendall, who's now at Southwestern, who was my boss here at Schreiner before he left to take the Southwestern job. That was his big thing. Like, hey, we're going to celebrate in the locker room, right? That's we're going to do it because that's for us. That's our space. We're not trying to put it in somebody else's face. We're not trying to, we act like we've been here before. He was a coach that took this team to 2 SCAC championships, and so he understood, right? Like the job's not finished from this one game, and so those are things that you're just building every single day. And so I think it's a long and arduous process to create those behaviors and create those attitudes. And you'll have fights along the way with some players that don't share your beliefs and attitudes. And you have to figure out how to handle that. Are you going to adopt and incorporate maybe their perspective, or are you going to reject that? Is there going to be a way to resolution with those things? But, those are just a couple thoughts I had when I was thinking about that in terms of what culture is and how it applies to us.
Well said, man. I like the idea of acknowledging that there may be some standards that work more on the court, literally with how we play, and then some standards that off the floor they're shown more, or like Shawnee said, when they break, you see the break more. Right. Some on the court, some off. I think there's a danger with culture of having one or the other too far, where like your culture really only has to do with basketball. You know, like we play fast. All right, that's nothing wrong with that. I love that.
Right.
But how do you translate that to the way that we treat each other in the locker room? You know, so what if it's just basketball specific, some danger there. You could also say the other side. If your culture off the floor, it doesn't really, I've thought that from time to time. Like we talk about excellence quite a bit in how we keep the locker room, you know, how we are as students. But what's the excellence look like in practice on the floor? I think when you have a lot of carry or crossover, or your culture bleeds into both of those areas, then I think easier for it to really be ingrained in your team.
Yeah.
Easier for us to really see those moments and pick up on those moments when they break.
And particularly important, I think, at the small college, small high school level. You know, I always tell guys, you know, the way you're going to do those little things, the way you do some things, you know, a lot of times is the way you do everything. And so if you're not a guy that's diligent in the way that you handle your academics, if you're not a guy that takes responsibility, like, you know, you're walking out of a weight room and there's weights out and you're not putting them up. You're walking out of a gym and there's balls out. You know, that lack of attention and diligence is going to bleed over to your basketball and the way you approach your preparation and the way you approach your sleep and the way you approach your nutrition. And so I think what you're saying is right. There's a connection between our culture on the floor and the culture that we want our guys to have outside the floor. I think the challenge is, again, like you have you'll come across these incredible leaders in the course of your coaching career. You know, that when you get lightning in a bottle and your best player is your best worker, is your best culture guy, how easy a team to coach is that, right?
It's Marcus Smart.
Everything falls into place.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we've all had those teams where that, you know, that really good player is not a great culture guy, but he is respected by his teammates on the floor. And now you've got imbalance. And I think having a great off the field, you know, off the court culture and great leadership, it's not as important when you're winning. It's not as important when you're doing well on the floor. I'm not saying we don't want to have it, but winning can paper over some of that. What happens is when that culture is tested, right? When there's adversity, and now we don't have that leadership, we don't have those examples to get back to. Now you're in a really tough spot.
I think you got to know a little bit. Maybe that's the awareness of knowing about your team, like really knowing where you're at and where the holes are. How many people think that they have a great culture because when we double whistle and we come in, there's a lot of cheering, you know, like or the gym just sounds like there's a lot of energy in the gym.
Yeah.
I think knowing really where it's at, and Shawnee talked about that, is having culture check-ins, like things in place so that you know where that there is some slippage happening. Right. And then you could ask the question too, like, okay, what would you rather have, a guy with a ton of talent and bad culture, or not that much talent, but he's a great culture guy? I think both have their challenges, you know, and the years when you have like that player, you're probably going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
The years
His name
when
was Keenan Gums. He was Keenan Gums. He was an All-American here, and he's now the assistant strength and conditioning coach in Kentucky. A phenomenal player, even better person. So anyway, Coach, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think it's okay to acknowledge, like, those years you're probably going to be pretty darn good and have some fun. And the other 2 years, you'll have some amazing moments. After a loss with that culture guy that's not very good, he's going to say and do some amazing things that brings the group together. The other dude, though, with a lot of talent and no culture, he's probably going to help win you some games, but there's always going to be a little bit of a feeling. So I think those are just truths that happen. The odds of every year having all 15 that are talented and the culture is really high within them, those are special years. And over the course of your 20, 30-year career, I don't know, a few. Yeah. Obviously, though, we do our very, very best Just like if shooting is your thing, but you have a group that naturally don't shoot well, we got to do our very, very best to bring their level up to where they or from where they are.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.